Hi, welcome to a new video, and today I'm looking at possible a classic caravan restoration project for somebody. Now, you know I love my classic caravans, and quite a few out there secretly like them as well, I know you do. And also, I'll get a lot of questions asked about it. But today, I'm going to look, it's quite a rare one, and it's a car cruiser from 1965. Anyway, follow me. This is, as I said before in the intro, a 1965 car cruiser Carnelian. I've got to get that. Now, anybody who knows anything about car cruisers are one of the oldest makes around. They started not long after Ettles. The guy who started them was called, well, his nickname was Streamline Bill, because what he did, his first caravans were, at the time, very streamlined, and they used to have a big sort of beetle back on them, especially by the 30s when the Art Deco styling was coming in. But anyway, so let's spin on up to 1965, which was actually the last proper model year, because the company who actually bought the car cruiser name was O.G. Lywood, and they produced Clubman Tourers in what I would call a fairly conventional profile actually, but they were still very distinctive. Now the Carnelian was a full berth. Now in the smaller make models, car cruisers did things like the Charisma. They did a lot of two berths because that was mainly the market, although they did 14-foot larger Tourers, which of course slept up to 4 people. Anyway, let's have a quick look round. Of course, what you've got to remember is, back in those days, there was nothing like galvanised chassis. And also, most caravan manufacturers had their own spray shops. It wasn't really till the late 60s, early 70s that most manufacturers then bought in pre-painted aluminium, which was stove-baked on and more durable. But anyway, going back to the chassis. These were placed on a B&B trailer chassis. B&B were a very popular chassis manufacturer in the day, and the trouble was, back in that time, as I said before, they didn't galvanise chassis. What you had to do as a caravaner, probably every 2 years, was paint the chassis. Because basically if you didn't, and especially if you lived somewhere like a lot of salt in the air, like a seaside place, it would rust through. As you'll see on here, it's actually the modern 50mm coupling. Now pre that was the 60mm, and in sort of 64, 65 they changed over to this 50mm, which is now what we use on modern Tourers. At the front here there was a cradle for the gas bottles to go on, and literally all you had was a 7-pin plug, because all it needed to do was really do the road lights. Let's have a quick look round. Right, now before we go in, we'll have a bit more of a look round the side here. What car cruisers did, and this is quite novel, now this isn't a stable door, it's a one piece, and if you notice, a lot of modern manufacturers have gone back to one-piece doors. Some do stable doors. I'm a bit of a fan of stable doors. But what they did on this, these by the way are the original curtains. This literally came down. Now you could lock it in position with these two little type things there, came over to bring it down, and it had several adjustments there. So even though you haven't got a stable door, you still could get your air coming through without having the door open. I think that's pretty clever. I'll leave it like that. Let's go around the back. Now, what I do like about this Tourer is it is very, very original. Now the problem is, when people buy a restoration caravan, what they sometimes buy is what somebody's already started to mess around with. And the problem with that, of course, is yes, they'll tell you what they've done, but really you haven't seen it being done. So when you're getting something like this that's very original, and they're fairly rare, and this model is a rare one because they say it's a 4-berth, they only made them for about a year or two, is you're going to start off from scratch, and all that might be a lot of hard work. At the end of the day is at least you can start to put it together again and do it exactly how you know it should be done, so you're going to do it the job proper. What I do like is this sort of thing here was again this piece of aluminium folded over with the car cruiser name on. It's been abroad at some stage. It's a K-Reg car, last towed it, that's 1972. And the big 50 sticker here, well 50 stickers came in 1973 when the law was changed from 40 miles an hour to 50 for trailers and caravans, because what you had to do was have the weight of the caravan in the caravan window and the weight of the car in the car window, and that had to be, the caravan has to be lighter loaded up than what the car was as it stood, otherwise it was illegal and you couldn't tow at 50, but you could tow at 40 anyway. What I do like is also this comes with an Acaroll too, and that's an original Acaroll, probably from the late 50s, early 60s. Now what you'll see here, obviously it needs new lights on, and I know the lights that those used, and those are still, I think, as far as I'm aware, readily available. But I like the reflectors and the handle, the grab handle, how it's all sort of moulded into that. The triangles, of course, would be put on years later, because triangles didn't come into till not about 1972 that all caravans and trailers had to have a triangles put on as part of new regulations. Let's just go on this other side here. That little frosted window there, of course, is the washroom. Now when we were looking at this, there was, you may notice, but the windows were quite set low, and the back end is here because most cars in those days you would have been able to do what they call see-through vision, and that was a big advertising, big sell for a lot of caravan manufacturers such as Swift and people like Welton and Knowsley, and also car cruiser, because they had the windows low so you could look it through, straight through the car, without having to mess around with towing mirrors. Right, now this is a layout that was very, very popular, especially in the 60s and in the 70s too. And that is a corner washroom, side bunk, side settee with swing up bunk, and usually a little window at the top here for the top bunk user, and either a table at the back here or a chest of drawers. And these chest of drawers are solid. They're absolutely solid. They're like the day they were made. Car Cruiser used limed oak finish on the woodwork. All the fittings are chromed, good quality, and although there would be very few, I would think, Car Cruiser families around who'd want this van at, I think it's about 12 foot 6, so very few would be made. They still produce this van for, say, for a year or two, and probably couples still bought this as they would do today, a 4-berth, to bring the grandkids along. That's my assumption on this. So you had a fold-up bunk here, and this is what they called a solid bunk, so it wasn't obviously a hammock bunk. Now when you look at this, yes, there's damp coming in through. You know, we're talking a Caravan here, it's 60 years old near enough, and it's been out all its life. Again, jobs like this can be easily rectified. The insulation on this actually is polystyrene, which is again quite unusual. Car Cruisers up until about 64 used tin foil, so it's a bit less messy to work with when you're having to take off the interior panels. A lot of these jobs, as I say, look daunting, but if you've got decent enough skills, you can get this sort of job done. But take your time, because I think a lot of people do buy restoration jobs and go at it absolutely head first and don't seem to appear to be making much headway, and they give up. This is a nice long-term project. I would say give this probably about 6 months of steady work on this, and this van could be made very, very nice. So toilet compartments here in the corner here, literally an empty room as they were, but this door I'm going to block you off here, I'm afraid. Comes out, and to make it usable, there's a door on the inside, and this would actually take all this area off. So again, it was a very common idea to use, and literally you have to be careful you didn't walk in when you're on the loo, so you have to make sure that outside door was locked. Right, let's come and have a look at this front end. This front lounge area would sit 4 adults quite easily here, I think. I mean, okay, you're not going to have loads of room, but we are talking 12'6" this one. But it's just sitting here, you just start to feel that real 60s type of vibe, really. And to be quite honest, you know, car cruisers were a good manufacturer. By the time this model was made, it was taken over by a company called Primrose Group, and they finished them, and eventually a company called Cooper Coachworks took the car cruiser name on. Unfortunately, they didn't do very much with it. They dibbled and dabbled a bit, but the car cruiser name really sank by 1971-72. In this lounge, yes, there's going to be some work to be done. And let's face it, you know, it's bound to happen. Again, because of its simple, basic construction, these are far easier to work on than what a modern Tourer would be. You've got the overhead lockers up here, and you've got gas lights. There's a gas light as you came in at the by the kitchen area, which I'll have a look in a minute. Because don't forget, gas lights were the thing. Although some manufacturers did put 12-volt strip lights in. This has been retrofitted with a, looks to me possibly like a 12-volt light in there as time went on, because this van has been owned, or was owned, by the same person from new. I think it was some parents had it and they'd owned it, and then when they died, this van was just left in the garden. So these original curtains, I mean, again, you could probably do away with these and get some replacements very similar to those quite easily in this day and age. But just sitting here, it does feel really quite comfortable, and you've got a great view out too. When you're starting to do a restoration though, as I say, it does help as well if you can get some advice off other people too. There's clubs like the Historic Caravan Club, the Periodic Classic Caravan Club, the Alternative Retro Caravan Club. There's quite a few out there. Those are sort of 3 that I would recommend, who've got people who can give you some good information probably. And also, you know, if you can find any old shots or brochure shots of this, which I'm going to put on the end of this video because I've got that, you can see what it would look like when it was new and how it could be made and transformed back to how it looked good again. Now, over on this far side, and when it comes to the wardrobe, there's a gas fire been put in here, and that's been retrofitted. So it's a sort of really still part of this caravan's history. It's just somebody just put a more modern one in, probably in the, I would say probably by the 70s by looking at it. But actually the wardrobe itself, all I would do with this wood, and the rest of the wood really, is probably put a satin type varnish over it, because that's all it really needs. Because really it would be a shame to spoil the originality of this Tourer. Because although you're going to restore it, yeah, that's great, but you don't want to take away its full character. And doing something with the wood, like just putting a satin varnish on, would actually make that look really smart and preserve it longer. The wardrobe itself, because of course, you know, you can actually, you know, once you've got this restored, the idea is to use it, and probably to use it if you've got a classic car on a classic car rally, or even if you join one of the clubs. But the thing is, it's a big wardrobe for those days, because a lot of people didn't take much with them. But it's got a big long hanging drop on it. It's really a super wardrobe. We'll just go over to the kitchen. Now, again, this kitchen, you look at bad lockers today, by today's standards, again, people didn't take much with them at all. Look at all this, no plastic or little metal frame. This has all been made especially to put your cups and plates in. I think that's brilliant. That'll have been made in the factory. To think all this is still in one piece and still works all these years on. Now, there's a 2-burner gas cooker and stove, and on this there's an oven as well, which would have been an optional extra. So that is an original oven. Again, anything like that I'd get checked over, make sure it's all okay, but I'd clean it up because this is all part of the heart of this Tourer. Now, back in those days, again, plastic sinks were the norm. Not until the 70s did they start really fitting stainless steel sinks in caravans. Yes, that looks grotty at the moment, but a bit of elbow grease, that'll come up a treat. And what I do like, because that's what I remember from my parents' 1969 Ellis Tornado, which was a new van at the time, it's got the old Whale hand pump. And I presume that will possibly still work, but you may want to use something different. But I'd just leave it there even if you're not using it. It's just a nice period feature. Again, storage wise underneath, this slides across, although it's not going to slide across very easy at the moment. I'll leave it there because I don't want to force it, because we're looking at something, you know, it's been around a long time. But there's quite a bit of cupboard storage underneath there anyway, take my word for it. And again, remember, these people didn't take much with them in those days. So buying a classic caravan and restoring it, yes, it's no walk in the park, but if you've got somewhere especially to put it under cover, and don't forget, again, these caravans weren't as high as what modern ones are, so they don't need the big space like a modern Tourer would do. I would get one of these, and I know it's original, I'd try and keep it as original as possible. I'd get any rotten framing redone. If I could do it myself, obviously I'd do it myself. All the wall, any wall board it needs doing. The roof on this is pretty sound actually, but generally go through it and get it sorted and take your time. Don't try and rush it, and don't just start getting bored with it. If you're starting to feel a little bit fed up, have a rest off it, give yourself a break, and then go back on it again. But the actual rewards of seeing it done and knowing you've done it is really good. I go up to quite a few of these sort of classic caravan rallies and look around, and some of the vans that they've restored are brilliant, and they still retain what the van was originally like. I think this is going to be a fantastic project for somebody who is in it for the long term and who's got some skills just to do the various jobs. Don't forget, as I said before, these caravans were very simple by today's standards, so really not a big major job as it would be on a modern Tourer, because they aren't as easy to repair as what these are, believe me. Come the kitchen, don't forget, people didn't take the stuff as they do today. People had very light meals in effect, so you didn't need an old singing, old dancing kitchen. And at the end of the day, there's no such things as microwaves, but there was ovens. Now the oven on this would have been classed as an optional extra. I'll have to check that out on the brochure. Now that has been fitted in probably by the dealer after the caravan was bought, so it's a retrofit, but that'll be from the late 60s. There's a 2-burner hob and a grill there, and again, all these need doing is checking for any leaks, just get somebody in to do it, and also then you can get them cleaned up and they'll come up looking like new. Now the sink, I'll show you this because it's plastic, and in that period of time, especially in the 50s into the 60s, by the early 70s they'd gone to stainless steel, all manufacturers, but it was plastic was the norm, and that was what you'd use to do your washing up, etc. There's even a little soap tray there as well, and it's got little studs in to stop your soap running away. Also, what I do like is this little Whale hand pump. This is a real blast from the past. So these wouldn't have been around all that long actually when this caravan was made. Mum and Dad had one of these in the new 1969 Ellis Tornado we had, and I can remember as a sort of kid, couldn't wait to pump the water through out of a 2-gallon water container. even if that didn't work, I would leave that in anyway, and a lot of people would do that because that's part of the makeup of this Tourer. When it came to your crockery, this is what it was. It was actually a wooden, handmade, probably in the factory, no plastic or little metal things. It was designed to be fitted exactly in there. And also on this side, although they're a bit stiff, you put your cups, and I think there's, yeah, put your little cups and stuff like that in there. So let's have a summary. Restoring a Caravan, go for something that is as original as possible, because as I say, some people mess around. As people advertise caravans on places like eBay and Gumtree, they put the wrong year on them. That's quite a common thing. Also as well, they may paint over a lot of cracks, and 12 months later you're back to how it would have looked. Plus as well, they may have altered something completely out of what the van was originally like. With this, it's a good original van. This is a van which would be ideal if I had the time and somewhere to restore this and could do some minimal DIY work. This is the sort of thing I would probably go for. A, because it's a rare model of car cruiser. Car cruiser, well respected make. Yes, Safaris and Cheltenham and Castleton are all names that you'll hear of in classic caravan circles, but to me, car cruisers were a nice van, and they didn't look, how can I put it, on the outside, they still looked quite a conventional, nice looking Tourer, but they didn't have lantern roofs and GRP front and back panels, which can in time, and roofs which can in time actually crack, as well as fade to where they go completely, the colouring goes on them. But to have this on a classic caravan rally, to me, would be pretty good, because I would think myself a little bit above everybody else, because I've got something that's rarer and it's a nice looking van. So restoration, patience, obviously you'll need a bit of money, but mainly it's your time, and if you've got somewhere to put it in to do it, all the better. And because these caravans weren't as high as what modern caravans are, these will go in quite sort of lowish buildings really. But look at this, I mean, okay, I'm only 5'7", but it's a boat roof, what they call a boat roof, but look at the headroom on that. That's pretty good. So I'll put some details up on the video after this. I'll put some pictures up of what it looked like when it was new, not this particular one, but this model, and the price it would have been when it was new, and the weights and the length and the width. But in the meantime, I hope I've whetted your appetite, because I reckon there's a few of you out there that'd like to have a classic caravan to go behind maybe that Ford Cortina or Austin 1100 or 1300 probably. These were pretty lightweight in all fairness, so you wouldn't need a big car to tow this at all by any means. People have that myth of older caravans heavy. No, newer caravans are heavier than older ones because there's so much stuff in the things. Right, on this note, I'm going to leave you. I hope you've enjoyed watching the video, and please like and subscribe, I should say, on everything. And I'll see you on the next one, and I'm going to be doing a few more classics after this one, so I hope you enjoy them. They'll be spread amongst other videos. Anyway, I won't say any more. I'll see you on the next video, and yeah, think about getting a classic. This is a perfect Tourer to have. See you on the next one.